Hello, welcome to Bennetts Bike Social. I am Michael Mann. Thanks for joining me. Now, time for a little quiz. What happens if you took a Ducati Streetfighter engine, if you added some biplane wings, the electronic suite of a Panigale V4, 199 kilos, 205 brake horsepower, and then you took away the fairings? You get this. It's the Streetfighter V4 S. The Ducati Super Nakeds have been around for about 20 odd years, since the turn of the century, with the Monsters and the Street Fighters. And then after the Ducati Panigale V4 was launched in 2018, everybody shouted about wanting a naked version of that bike. And here it is, finally. The Street Fighter is here, and there's really, once you take all of those parts of that equation into consideration, there's been nothing like this. And of course, one of the most standout points are these biplane wings. You can get these in a carbon finish as an additional extra, and on the Panigale V4, it's just one. I don't know why there's two on this one. They call it the biplane wings. And of course, wings are there to keep the bike a bit more stable, certainly under braking, turning in and accelerating. But I think I found out the reason really why they've got two. Perfect fit. What about that? So there's two models in the Street Fighter range. You've got the standard bike at 17,595, and then this is the S model, and that's 19,795 as the price. So the biggest differences between the standard model and this is the S model is suspension and wheels. On the standard model, you've got the fully adjustable Showa big piston forks, you've got Sachs rear shock, and you've got a Sachs steering damper. You've also got the 5-spoke light aluminium alloy wheels, whereas this, the S, you've got Öhlins, fully adjustable electronic suspension on the front. It's got the monoshock on the rear, and of course the Öhlins steering damper too. And this has got the Marchesini 3-spoke forged aluminium alloy wheels. The total package is 2 kilos lighter. So this weighs in at 199 kilos, fully ready to ride. Now, engine-wise, we've already mentioned it's got the Panigale V4 1103cc Ducati Streetfighter engine. It's slightly different tuned than the main sports bike. So of course the sportier bike wants all that power at the top ends, but this is the Street Fighter version, so it's just got that torque and it makes that power a little bit lower. It makes it a little bit more aggressive and more powerful at the bottom end. And its state of tune is within spitting distance of the Panigale V4. And of course, the similarities include the counter-rotating crankshaft as well. That reduces that gyroscopic effect. It's supposed to make the bike a bit more agile and certainly better under engine braking. 205 brake horsepower. Yeah, you read that right. And it means that it's got a lot of competition these days. The ZH2 particularly, the Aprilia Tuono, even that MV Agusta, KTM's 1290 Super Duke R as well. There's a lot of competition in this naked arena for big power and lunacy and wildness, all while making it rideable and a street bike. But Ducati claims this has got 25% better power to weight ratio than any other. 123 newton meters of torque, and again, like I said, it makes it all the way down at that bottom. If you're not satisfied with 205 brake horsepower, you can get a full system as well, which will take it up by 12. You get it up to 217 brake horsepower at peak, and that'll save you 5.5 kilos as well. Its peak torque and its peak power are way up the rev range, 11,500 RPM, for example. And that's not necessarily day-to-day street bike type of realism. You're never going to be riding around the street at 11,500 RPM. The gearbox ratios and the engine mapping actually give the Street Fighter 14% more torque at 60 miles an hour in third gear than the Panigale. So of course you can take it on the track, of course you can. And it's kind of been designed in a way that you should be able to. The idea, of course, is about like this, is that you're going to use it on the street and you're going to use it, the majority of its use is going to be much further down in the rev range, so it makes it very tractable down low. Shall we take a look around at all the different components that make up this beautiful Street Fighter V4? So we've already talked about the Marchesini wheels, 3-spoke wheels. They've got 3 different spokes and then 3 spokes off those 3 spokes. Nice design, nice lightweight. Brembo styler calipers and brakes. It's a nice twin 330mm disc. That's going to give you a hell of a lot of stopping power, especially when all those Ducati electronics are doing their business as well. Talked about the Öhlins forks, fully adjustable. You can turn off the adjustability as well, the electronic adjustability in the settings too. As far as this front is concerned, you've got your headlights, DRL lights, all in this one bit here. They talk about this Joker style face. I think Joker as in the fella from the films, from the Batman films. That's kind of the inspiration in terms of the design. Rubber, we've got Pirelli's Diablo Rosso Corsa 2s, which will be great for the street, possibly less great. If you're going to be taking this thing on track, then you probably want something with a bit slicker edge. Okay, so it's the same electronic suite as you'll find on the 2020 Panigale V4. It's a familiar layout across the handlebars of most Ducatis have got this sort of similar layout, so it makes it nice and multifunctional. So on that beautiful little TFT display there, you've got your modes, street mode it's in at the moment. Just click that forward, you've got street, sport or race. All of them come with preset defaults, but you can then start changing those around to your own parameters that you prefer with your riding mode. You've got a selectable, you can turn the selectable different wheelie control look, stability control, engine brake and ABS, quick shifter, traction, and you can change those as well. One thing missing from here is of course a fuel gauge, but again that's very familiar. You'll soon know when you're running out of fuel. So if you want to change wheelie control look, you can turn it off. There's all these different parameters for wheelie control as to how stable and safe you want it to be, or whether you want it to. Because what it'll do in riding mode sort of 1 or 2 is it'll allow you a degree of front wheel lift, but it'll hold you at a certain angle. It won't allow you to go much further. If you want to turn it off, you turn it off. You've got cornering ABS, you've got the latest generation of traction control, you've got slide control, wheelie control, power launch, or launch control as we call it. Quick shifter up and down, it's the new version, that's the second generation. And engine brake control, and of course you've then got your 3 different rider modes with street, sport and race. Moving down to the biplane wings, let's just remove our unofficial accessory there and put on the brake lever for now. So, 2 wings, they call it biplane, obviously 2 either side. You can have those in carbon if you wanted to as an official accessory. So they offer stability and agility, specifically keeping the front wheel down. The claim is 28 kilograms of force at 165 miles an hour. Now, of course, this is all just what Ducati are telling us, and we're probably not going to notice 28 kilograms of downward pressure at 165 miles an hour. But they claim that 20 kilograms of which is over the front, 8 kilograms of which is over the rear. So the whole purpose of it is to keep it nice and stable, to look good, and to be a bit of a talking point, in my opinion. So the bike's got a 16-litre fuel tank. We're going to go and take it for a ride. I'll give you an indication of what MPG we're going to get out of that and what sort of mileage you're going to be able to get out of a tank. It's quite a sporty style, so it's a low enough tank, gives you plenty of vision over these nice high handlebars, and actually the fuel tank feeds nicely underneath this seat. It's quite a narrow seat, 845 mil seat height, and it's lovely and comfortable. Just done about 20 odd miles this morning, first thing. Fits like a glove, it's lovely, and you can move yourself into 2 main positions. One, you can be quite sporty and have your nice snuggly in here, or you can move your bum right against this pillion seat. I don't fancy that as much in the way of comfort for a pillion, but this is lovely, it's nice and squishy. Hopefully we'll get to feel that over the course of the ride. Riding position is very good, so far so good. I'll give you more of an opinion perhaps later in this piece, but with the high wide handlebars and the peg position, which is slightly lower than you'd find on a super sports bike like the Panigale, but it's nice and comfortable at the moment. Engine is considered a stress member, and that's because here you've got this aluminium front frame, they call it, and then the engine is bolted to the frame, so it all acts as a chassis together. Single-sided swing arm, as you'll have noticed, opens this nice section of the rear wheel up. It's got a split 2-way exhaust, so you've got one out this side, one out the other way, and it's blooming noisy as well, again, as you'd normally expect from a Ducati. Sounds very typically Ducati, very V4. And then this rear section, it looks like a Panigale V4 when you look at it from here. It's nice sculpted rear, it's nice and flowing. It's got these, you can kind of see through the airflow through the side of the pillion seat. Very good. And look, first impressions are pucker. Let's go and see how it gets on the road. Here we go then, Ducati Streetfighter V4 S. Well, like everything Ducati, it's well put together, it's very presentable, it looks great, it's a premium product, it's a premium brand. I really like the way this thing handles. the steering damper, suspension, the wheelbase, the geometry of the bike, Pirelli tyres, the Brembo brakes. Again, all real fine components, but like all bikes with a lot of horsepower, it's only intense for the amount of throttle action that you give it. And this dynamic suspension works really well, skipping across all the lumps and bumps. And you can really tell about that torque and the power down low in the rev range. Certainly the mid-range is pretty ferocious. And it's great fun. God, it makes you smile, it makes you happy. The brakes are great, the suspension's great. So then they've had the 1098, 1199, 1299, and of course now the Panigale V4 sports bike. Use a lot of that technology here in the Streetfighter. I do want to talk about the mirrors, because just like the Panigale and the Multistrada range, the mirrors are big enough to see what's going on behind, but very limited adjustability. I find the steering on this bike very, very easy. It's light enough to turn quickly, it's light enough to turn slowly. The lock-to-lock angle isn't particularly brilliant. Oh, this thing is so exciting. I'm really into it. And do you know what? I am fortunate enough to have from Ducati on loan a Streetfighter as my long-term bike this year, so hopefully that'll give me plenty of opportunity to put a couple of thousand miles on it at least, and try and let you know how well it's behaving and what its good bits and bad bits are over the course of a longer term test rather than a one-dayer like this. Lovely sound, makes a joyful sound, doesn't it, this V4? It behaves a little bit like a twin. Just the engine braking is nice and sedate, but it's very smooth on and off the throttle. I think the world has been waiting for this kind of bike for a long time. Easier to ride than one might expect from a £20,000, 200 odd horsepower. It's not as frightening as you one might think. Yes, it has got a hell of a lot of go when you want it to. But equally, it's got a hell of a lot of stop and a hell of a lot of refinement. This is my happy face. Happy because I've just spent about 100 miles on this. Every single mile was extraordinary. It was so much fun. I really, really enjoyed it. Look, this bike has been one of my 2020 to-do list ever since I first saw it when it was unveiled back in October. I've been aching to get on it, and thankfully it didn't disappoint. It's so good. We spent a bit of time on the dual carriageways, B roads, A roads, really tried to mix up the types of riding, and also then you get to work on the comfort and the economy and the suspension and the brakes and how the chassis works and how the steering works and all the sort of the dynamic proportions of an incredible bike like this. We all know it's going to be powerful, but then where does it make that power? How does it make that power? What's the throttle connection like? And all the kind of things that you kind of work on when you're starting to review a bike. And at one point I thought to myself, my God, I shouldn't be enjoying it that much. I've got to do some work here. It's it's not just for enjoying it. I've got to review it properly. And I kind of had to snap myself back into doing some proper work. Look, it isn't without its faults. Just running through them, look, styling-wise, it's not to everybody's liking. I don't mind it. Naked bikes are a bit tricky because the designers haven't got a great deal of fairing to work with, of course, to give it that kind of iconicness. Of course, you've got the wings on this particular model, so it automatically stands out. Everyone's going to see these biplane wings and know exactly what kind of model it is. Look, they made such a great job of this surround here on the headlights. I think it looks very, very good. I like it. The trouble is it then looks like the TFT display's just been plonked on the top. you get no wind protection on a naked bike, you don't buy it for that particular reason. I also think that these silver radiator surrounds could be better. It would make the bike look better if they were red, so you've got that kind of red flow all the way through. But hey, look, it's down to personal preference. Ducati wing mirrors aren't known for their flexibility, let's call it, or manoeuvrability. They're quite nice and wide, so they do offer a fair old view of behind you, but those arms, you just need to carry around an Allen key if you want to start adjusting them. But all that aside, I think it looks super smart. I think the power is outrageously well manageable. 205 horsepower is an enormous figure. And it took everybody sitting there when it was first announced, almost, with their mouths wide open thinking, this is not real. For a naked bike, 205 brake horsepower. But it is manageable. I know the old adage is it only goes as fast as your right hand turns. It's very progressive in the way it comes in. It's nice and smooth through that torque and through that power range. Mid-power roll-on, it's lush. That's exactly what you want it for. And that's kind of why this bike has been designed or tuned in that particular way, because anywhere from sort of 4.5, 5, 5.5. 5.5 is about right. That's where you get that boom of power. The gearbox is slick as anything. You have to be quite precise with the upshift. Perhaps because it's such much of a new bike, it just needs to be run a little bit more. I find it very comfortable. The bike's very comfortable. The pegs are still quite high, despite the fact that they're lower than the Panigale, but they're still quite high. There's a lot of ground clearance there. And the seat itself is nice and wide at the back, and you've got quite a lot of room to maneuver backwards and forwards. The handlebar position, again, as you'd expect a naked bike to be, it's nice and wide and high. They're adjustable too. And then you've got all those parameters with the electronics to work with just to find your setting, the way in which you want it to work. You've got street mode, you've got sport mode, you've got race mode, and you can change all those modes. You can change all the different electronics within those modes. Relatively simple to get used to as well. And that TFT display, all right, there's no fuel gauge, but the rest of it, very clear, very easy to read. I am super impressed. And as I've already mentioned, I've got one of these as a long-term loan bike from Ducati this year, so I'll be coming back to you with with my findings over the course of the year. I was going to tell you one more thing. 40 miles to the gallon is what I've averaged today. So out of a 16-litre tank, you're going to be running about 110, 120 miles before that little light comes on, and you'll be heading to the next fuel stop. But overall, yeah, I'll go back to my crazy grin. You can read the full review at BikeSocial.co.uk.